Oh,
versus
well, I said hello, hello, hello.
Good evening and welcome to the June 16th regular board meeting. Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Coates?
Here.
Mrs. Horn?
Here.
Mr. Manley? Here. Mrs. Mooring?
Here.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Here. Can you all please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there a motion to approve minutes from the May 4th, May 6th, and May 7th, and May 9th special board meetings, the May 17th Finance and Facility Committee meeting and special board meeting, and the May 19th regular board meeting?
So moved.
Thanks, Mrs. Mooring. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Any corrections or discussion? Okay, Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll?
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Motion carried.
We're on to the most exciting for us, the agenda, the community reports and presentations section of the agenda. And we are going to begin with a presentation from our Eastland Fairfield Teaching Professions Program. I know Mrs. Hildebrand is here. If you wouldn't mind introducing everyone that you have with you, and you the lectern. My only warning is do not touch the microphone. It's already on already.
Can you hear? Okay. Well, good evening, board members and members of the Gehanna Jefferson Public School District. My name is Robin Hildebrand, and I am the Teaching Professions Instructor for Eastland Fairfield Career and Technical Schools. And we have partnered with Gehanna for over 11 years for this program, the Teaching Professions Program. And this is our 11th year in the district, and so it's really awesome to be here this evening and share with you the successes that we've had. I also have with us my superintendent, Dr. Miller, and then I also have my supervisor, Jackie Cuffle, as well as a graduate of the program who is going to speak to you in a little bit, Haley Perry, who is also a teacher for Gehanna Jefferson Schools, and Mary Kate Gephardt, who just graduated from the program and is headed off to college. I think we're going to show you a quick video about the Teaching Professions Program that focuses on what we do.
The Fairfield Teaching Professions Program is a 2-year program designed to give kids a chance to explore the field of teaching and all the different career opportunities that are available within the field of education. During those 2 years, students have an opportunity to go out and observe in classrooms throughout the Gehanna School District or their home school district. They'll do an elementary, a middle school, a high school, and a special education placement. And they love working with the students in the classrooms here in Gehanna, and they love working with the teachers that we have here at Gehanna as well. The other time that they're in our class, they are learning about education, everything from classroom management, curriculum and development, child development, lesson planning, all that good stuff.
I chose to get into the Teaching Professions Program when I was in high school because I wanted to be a teacher my whole life, so I chose to go into it to confirm that, and it definitely confirmed it for me. When I was in high school, I actually got to come to Middle School West, and the teacher who's next door to me right now, I got to be in her classroom, and I fell in love with the school, I fell in love with the students, I fell in love with middle school, and then all the other schools and placements I got to go to in the Gehanna district were just awesome, and it kind of just reaffirmed that I wanted to be a teacher.
A lot of our people that are in our class don't actually want to become educators, but they might want to become like a psychologist or a counselor. So it's not just for like teachers, which is a really cool part about our program. My favorite part of the class is all the opportunities that we get. We all have had college visits, field trips. Our observations are a big part of our program. And it's just nice to actually be in a classroom and like use those skills.
One of the first things Mrs. Hildebrand taught me when I was in her class was how important building rapport is with students, and that is definitely the thing that I have focused on this year. Building relationships with my students, making sure that they feel comfortable in my class. That's just the one thing that stuck with me through that class, through college, which I think is still the most important thing.
It just really solidifies of like, this is exactly where I want to be. This is what I want to do.
My ultimate goal is to bring about the next generation of teachers. We need to leave behind a legacy. What is that legacy? Who are the next group of kids coming in to take over these careers that we have and to provide for the next group of students? So my goal is to provide an opportunity for kids to explore is education field that you want to be in, and then provide that support and mentoring for those students as they begin to go on to college, and then also out into the real world.
Getting this position at West was pretty much my dream career. So I wanted to be teaching language arts in middle school West. I loved when I was in high school being in such a diverse school. So I just loved the atmosphere in every elementary and middle school that I went out to when I was observing their classes. Had the same feeling.
My hope is to come back to the district here, just because growing up, my teachers were a big part of my life. So I think definitely coming back to this place where I grew up and just kind of becoming a teacher and a role model for students, just how they were for me.
With a national shortage, we have to get creative. We also have to look at things like diversifying the teacher pipeline and having students and teachers that reflect the students that they have in their classroom. And that is so important, and I know that Gehanna values that very much. And that's part of why we've started some of these middle school programs, is to really start talking to these kids at a younger age about the field of education, and then seeing themselves in some of the teachers as they grow, and developing those relationships with teachers is so key in that support as they continue on. We want to work with them to and through college, you know, and then when they're done, coming back here to apply for a job.
Okay. So Haley Perry is going to talk to you. Oh. Question. Haley Perry is going to take a moment to share with you what her journey was like and the importance of this program in her life. So.
So again, I'm Haley Perry. I teach 6th grade language arts at Middle School West, and like I said in the video, that was pretty much my dream career. I wanted to be at that exact school. I wanted to be in this district, and it's because of the teaching professions program that I had the chance to kind of explore all of the different Gehanna schools. When I was in high school, I knew I wanted to be a teacher, but I had literally no idea what grade I wanted to teach, what subject I wanted to teach, so I was really fortunate to explore a lot of those different grade levels and subjects until I landed on middle school language arts. So after the teaching professions program, I was pretty confident that that's what I wanted to do, so I went on to Capital University to study middle childhood education. And when I was applying for jobs last year, this was the first district that I wanted to start applying to, and I was really happy to kind of get this job and be here. As a first-year teacher this past year, it has been pretty interesting. What a wonderful time to jump into the education profession. But it's been really nice knowing that I have like the support of Ms. Hildebrand and the teachers that I met while I was in high school, and having the kind of familiarity of the district in my background, I guess. So it's been easier to get through such a weird year being new in this position. But yeah, I truly always talk about the teaching professions program. Everybody I work with at Middle School West, they know that I was with a teacher. I was with Tracy Clay when I was in high school, and I talk about it all the time and how much it's been helpful. But yeah, that's my little story.
And funny story about Haley is that when she first came to my classroom, she told me she didn't like to speak in front of people. So I made her a state officer in the Educators Rising program. I said, that's what you're going to do. So, and she did. So, and this is Mary Kate Gephardt. Again, I'm going to have her come up here and share with you a little bit about the program. And what the Educators Rising program has done for her, kind of where she's headed with that and where she's headed next.
She said, my name is Mary Kate Gebhardt, and I was in the Teaching Professions program for 2 years and graduated recently. So I decided from a very young age that I wanted to become a teacher. And little story, I met Hildebrand with Eastland Fairfield's summer camp back in 6th grade. So already I knew there was a program out there. And so that's when I was like, this is what I wanted to do. So once applications came out, I off the bat was like, this is what I want to do. And honestly, it's probably the best decision I've ever made. Wanting to become a teacher, really, like I said in the video, it solidified my decision. Not only that, it opens up so many opportunities. One is Educators Rising, which is a student organization for students who want to become educators or in the education field. I was lucky enough to become the public relations secretary last year, and now I am the national officer for Educators Rising, where there's only 4 in the United States, so I'm lucky to represent Ohio. And yeah, that's, thank you. Oh, and I'm headed to Capital to double major in intervention specialist and early childhood. So I'm pretty excited. Anything else? Cool.
So we just want to thank you for allowing this program to be part of the community. I hope that we continue to grow and grow that next generation of teachers. It's so important to have those connections. I think they both talked about it. I talked about it in the video. It's all about relationships and building those, and we need to start at an early age and continue that with all of our teachers and show that this is a great field to go into, the field of education. So thank you.
We might have a couple questions. I want to does anyone else have questions? I know I do, but I'll.
Oh, I didn't
ahead,
have a
Karen.
question. I really just wanted to say, Haley, I'm so glad you're part of our district, and Mary Kate, I look forward to you becoming part of our district.
Thank you.
How many spots are available for this program, and do you fill it, and how does that work if it fills, right?
Yes. Great question. So normally there's around, we have junior and senior programs, and so it's usually around 25 to sometimes we can take up to 30. It just depends on the program itself. The last 4 or 5 years we've had upwards of 25, 26, 27 in the program, except for the COVID year. We got hit with 12, so that was a tough one. It's hard to recruit via the computer screen. But usually we're graduating upwards of 25 students in each class that we have. So
Mary Kate, I know you said that what was important to you is that you did the camp, and I think that's one of the things that we all are very interested in, getting the word out to much younger students. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's still a thing that's available, and how far down into elementary school are we even talking about the fact that there is a program?
yeah. And go ahead.
We started camp back this year.
Okay.
Camp's for middle school, and we really offer programs based on which instructors are able to teach. So that's part of that. But then we are expanding our career services department from 3 part-time career services specialists to 3 full-time career services specialists. And one of the things we want to do is partner with all of you, our 16 associate school districts, to bring more career exploration and awareness to elementary schools. We know elementary teachers do not have time to add that to their already very full plates, and so we want to be a partner in that. And so while the camps are for middle schoolers, we are working to expand our programming into just to help the students know all the various opportunities that are available to them. But Mr. Barrett and I were at a meeting yesterday and talking about the teacher shortage, and so we definitely need to encourage more and more young people to consider education, whether, as I think Mary Kate said in the video, whether it's, is that you in the video? Yeah, okay. Whether it's teaching or whether it's in a related field like school psychology or, as you know, counseling or social workers that we need in our schools. So you'll be hearing more about what's coming from us to support
And we also added this year 3 middle school programs of Educators Rising. So the Middle School West, East, and South all had chapters this year, and we met monthly, and the kids did activities, and so kind of connections that we can build now and then continue those every year. So.
Does anyone else have? Okay, go ahead.
Just briefly, just want to say it's great to hear your stories. And Mary, I didn't know that you went to the summer camp. That's so great to hear. We did plug the summer camp, by the way, earlier meetings. And yeah, very proud of your programming, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing more.
Mrs. Hildebrand, so the program is open to all of the school districts that are in the Eastland Fairfield.
Mm-hmm.
Can you, I guess, talk a little bit about the makeup of the class? Are there predominantly kids from Gehanna or kids from all over? What do the numbers look like?
So usually more than 50-60% of the kids are from Gehanna since we're located here. But we get kids from all the different school districts, and the nice part is they're now teaching there. So
Right.
we've got kids in Reynoldsburg, Canal, Whitehall.
Right.
You know, all our partner school districts are now hiring back some of those kiddos. So we definitely, big numbers come from Gehanna,
Yeah.
but we do take some. And I think the interesting thing is that they do get to meet different kids from different schools, and they become close-knit family that never separates. Really.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, so do you stay in touch? You kind of mentioned that you stay in touch with the other students. Do you have a support network of others that went through the program with you that are now teaching?
Yeah, so my home school is Canal Winchester, so I would have not been
That's
in
what I
Gehanna
was
schools,
wondering.
had I not gone through this
Yep.
program. So I was there were quite a few my year, I think, that were not from Gehanna, and a lot of us do keep in touch, even if it's just on like social media, but like seeing some of the people that I graduated with in 2017 when we all got our jobs last year, we were all very supportive and kind of just really excited for each other. And then I know that like there are people who graduated with me who are doing not education, they're doing a million different things, or they're still in school and figuring things out, and we're still also very supportive of each other.
That's what you have, that support network. I don't have another question, but the last thing that I just wanted you to know is that the program, it really does make an impact. I don't know if you know this or not, but when we recently were interviewing candidates to be our next superintendent, the candidates who came and participated in that interview, every single one of them spoke about the teaching professions program and how impressive it was to them that a program like that exists and how important it is for the future of public education. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And wish us luck, because we leave on Thursday next week for DC for our nationals trip, and I'm taking 17 kids that are competing in DC to try to win our competition. So wish us luck.
Good luck.
Good luck. We'll come back with good news. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Next on the agenda is Representative Mary Lightbody, our state representative. And in case there are people who weren't in the room before I said this, my warning is do not touch the microphone. It's already ready.
Thank you very much, and I'm very glad to be here tonight. I knew about the Teacher Rising program that you have in the Gehanna Jefferson School. I knew that 5 of the students are graduating, 1 at the state level, so I'm really looking forward to providing a similar accommodation as I have for Steve Barrett tonight for those kids after they win nationals. That would be super cool. So congratulations, it was fun to learn about that. So I have accommodation for Steve Barrett. I'm going to read this briefly, and then I'll walk up and shake his hand probably and wish him luck as he moves on. This is a accommodation signed by myself and Speaker Cupp. We give these out when very key and important people in our district are retiring from their position. And this reads, in short, Superintendent of Gehanna Jefferson Schools since 2016. You have brought your position of a wealth of experience gained as an educator and administrator with various school districts across Ohio, and you have performed your duties with the utmost competence and built tremendous relationships throughout the community. Indeed, you have displayed professionalism and leadership in all of your efforts, and your 34-year career in education has been marked by excellence. So with sincere pride, we commend you on your well-deserved retirement and salute you as a fine Ohioan.
He's been superintendent since I've been a state representative, so 4 years now. I've run into you and talked to you and commended all your work. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Before we go, anyone know where there are additional blank public participation forms? I think we're out of them up there.
They were. There was a stack of them when I walked in. Yeah.
It wasn't the agenda.
There was a stack of them.
I know we need one. We have a few.
You had to have a little humor.
These might not be up to date forms, but they will work. Thank you.
Be an appropriate time to say, if you are intending to speak during public participation, there are forms that can be filled out over there, and then they come up to me. Next, we have our mayor, Mayor Jadwin. You've heard the warning about the microphone, so.
Do not touch the microphone. I understand. Thank you very much, and thank you for allowing me to be here with you this evening. I will try to do my best to be as brief as possible. You certainly have a robust agenda ahead of you, but much like Representative Lightbody, I'm here tonight to issue a proclamation in honor of Superintendent Steve Barrett. We are 45 days and counting, right, Steve? Until you begin that well-earned retirement and start to embark upon.
I guess I'm counting now.
I was sitting there thinking, how many days does he have left at this point? But I know you have lots of plans for what you're going to do once you finish here at Gehanna Jefferson Public Schools. But I would be remiss if I did not come here this evening to issue a proclamation to you on behalf of the city of Gehanna. I won't read all of it, but there are a few things in here that I would like to share that certainly as superintendent of Gehanna Jefferson Public Schools, Superintendent Barrett has worked hard every day to ensure that the students of this district are the focus of all that is done by everyone in this district, school board members, administrators, teachers, support staff, and to ensure that students are being given the best that there is to offer in meeting not only their needs, but also in reaching their full potential. And certainly as somebody who follows all of the Twitter pages and Facebook pages of Gehanna Jefferson Schools, there's so much to be proud of that has been accomplished under your leadership. And I also would be, I think that I need to show here and read that part of your legacy, I think, is the focus and support that have been put in place to show students that they are valued and to increase every student's sense of belonging here in the district. For the past 34 years of a distinguished career, you have demonstrated commitment and dedication to the students and families of every district that you have served, certainly for the last 6 years at the Gehanna Jefferson Public Schools, and you're certainly going to be missed by everyone. And on behalf of the city of Gehanna, you've been a valued partner. I know you have gone on countless business visits with Mayor Neeland during his administration. You've been a tremendous partner for the last 2.5 years with my administration, and certainly the last couple of days helping us find locations as we tried to move kids who were in summer camps outside into an indoor facility, sharing school facilities so that we could make sure the kids were kept safe and healthy during the last few days of excessive heat. And that's the tip of the iceberg. But Steve, personally, thank you for your support. Thank you for your partnership. Professionally, thank you for all that you've done for the city of Gehanna, for our Gehanna Jefferson Public Schools, and much like Representative Lightbody, I'm going to come forward and shake your hand and present this proclamation to you. Congratulations. Thank you.
How uncomfortable are you at this point, Steve? Steve, I don't know if anyone knows, but Mr. Barrett does not quite enjoy being the spotlight. And on that note, our next speaker is Ron Smith, who is here from Neighborhood Bridges.
Make sure you don't touch the mic.
Well, good evening, members of the board, Treasurer Gooding, President Piccolo Antonio, and Superintendent Barrett. Tonight I'd like to share an update on the impact of neighborhood bridges here in Gehanna. I serve as the area director for Gehanna and as the director of business development for neighborhood bridges. We began serving the Gehanna area in October of 2017, and over the last nearly 5 years, we have impacted 17,800 students and children in the Gehanna School District. Yes, that means that some have received help from us more than on just one occasion. And that's great if we can be of assistance at the time of need that they have, and that's an average of helping 78 students per week. But we could not accomplish this alone. Neighborhood Bridges is supported by a community of residents who care about one another and care about one another's well-being and are willing to jump into action when they see someone in need. And that's what we call home. That's what we call Gehanna. We also could not do what we do without local leadership and their support to have this program thrive in the community as we have seen it grow. Now, this includes local leadership from the chamber and the business community, city government leadership from the mayor, faith support from our local ministerial association, and school support from the teachers, counselors, principals, and the administrative team. Neighborhood Bridges has now grown to be in 38 communities across the Columbus region, Cincinnati, and across Alabama, and now expanding into areas around Dayton, Toledo, and Cleveland. But we could not do that without our leadership to maintain the quality of what we do. Now, this is done at a local level by what we call our steering committee. Every community has one, and Gehanna is no exception. Matter of fact, I'm proud to say that we've set the blueprint of who should serve on such a steering committee. Ours includes our fire chief, our police chief, our mayor, chamber and convention and visitors bureau representatives, local financial institution managers, retired teachers, pastors, and our own superintendent, Mr. Barrett. It is with these community supporters that Neighborhood Bridges has had and will continue to have the impact within the Gehanna area in bridging support for those in need through simple, what we call acts of kindness. As an organization as a whole, Neighborhood Bridges has now impacted over 142,000 children and students in just 5.5 years. But tonight, we would like to bring to the board the introduction for the first time, our Community Supporter of the Year Award, and present it each year at the June board meeting on an annual basis. This is the first award ever created by Gehanna Neighborhood Bridges, and it is designed, and its purpose is simply to say thank you to a community supporter who has helped our program grow, impact people, and be an agent of change in our community. An individual who demonstrates their great care, concern, and love for Gehanna, its children, its students, and its residents. Matter of fact, we're going to name the award after an individual we feel exemplifies this and has demonstrated it on many occasions through his work with Neighborhood Bridges. Not just serving on our steering committee, but also engaging with our program on numerous occasions, whether it be our weekly food drive during COVID to support GRIN, or speaking with and encouraging other school districts and other superintendents to become a part of our Neighborhood Bridges program. Tonight, we are introducing the Barrett Community Supporter of the Year for Neighborhood Bridges. This inaugural award is being presented to Superintendent Steve Barrett. Mr. Barrett, Steve, I can't tell you how important and how valuable you have been to this community and to myself. Through your kindness, your input, and your leadership, you've made an impact on what we do here and what others do across the country through kindness. Because of what you have helped us do here, and for what that will be forever grateful, we say thank you. May you continue on your journey to be a difference maker and show others the power of kindness as you have demonstrated in your role as superintendent of Gehanna Jefferson Schools. Congratulations. Thank you.
Not think Trish Twig is here tonight, so we will wait to get the update from Gehanna Jefferson Education Foundation. We'll wait and do that in our board reports. So next we've got Mrs. Harding here from Gehanna Jefferson Education Association.
Good evening. I already know. I already got it. So, all right. Well, it is summertime, and I was able to power wash in between raindrops today, so I'm thankful for those moments. So, part of GJA, we wanted to talk a little bit about our awards banquet that we were able to have live and in person in May. And at that banquet, we were able to award several teachers and several soon-to-be teachers some awards. A banquet is funded through a grant through OEA, and we inducted Ginny Palguda into the Hall of Fame for her incredible devotion and contributions to GJA. We were thrilled to honor 5 Friends of Education Awards for this year for their contributions to our schools and community. And those people were Kim Ebiscotti, Jane Friend, Amy Amer, Jeremy Pape, and Aaron Miller. Finally, we were thrilled to honor our 5 retirees that decided to come to the event. Of course, we wish all the retirees well, but we enjoyed stories from Kevin Sheets, Amy Scott, Lori Kokalis Westbrook, Katie Brown, and Susan Van Dopp. So we wish all of our retirees much happiness and health and luck, and their contributions to our school will be ever remembered. So our scholarship recipients, and these are awarded to graduating seniors who are going to be professional educators, much like you heard earlier tonight. But Reagan Peterson was awarded the John Allen Memorial Scholarship, and she's planning to attend OU and majoring in early childhood education. Chloe Callahan was awarded the R. Burton Reed Scholarship, and she's presently enrolled in the College of Education at Bowling Green for inclusive early childhood, and is the daughter of GJA members Stacy and Ryan Callahan. And finally, our GJA Education Scholarship was awarded to Madeline Seabriak. She currently attends Kent State, and she's also enrolled in the special education program. So we're excited about our future educators. And as a side note, I want to say with Mary Kate, and I know she's not here right now, but as a 6th grader, she innately, as my student, knew what I needed. Like, if I needed a rhythm stick or I needed a pencil or a tissue, she was always standing there with whatever I needed. And she was able to come back this year, and she worked with special ed when I teach the special ed ESS music class. She was an aide. Thank God she was there as a musician, as a singer, and innately knowing not only what to do with music, but what to do with the kids. So it was a really grand full circle, and I certainly know she'll do great things. So legislatively, Dwayne Marshall and I attended Lobby Days on June 2nd. Many of you have been on the legislative watch, just like us. Several people were down at the State House today, not really, wanting to express the direct impact that House Bill 616 will have on our education system, House Bill 322 and House Bill 327. And we're very aware of those things. So thank you for joining us in that. As far as NEA I will be attending NEA live and in person in Chicago with Dwayne Marshall, John Stanforth, Bobby Schwarzentrooper, and Chris Swisher. So we look forward to all of those wonderful things we're going to be doing in Chicago. And finally, we certainly wish you well, Mr. Barrett, and we definitely look forward to Dr. Tracy Deagle, and we know that things will continue as wonderful things that they do in Gehanna. So thank you for your time and enjoy your summer.
Thanks. Next, we have an update from Finance and Facility. Maureen.
Yes, our Finance and Facilities Committee met on June 14th, and we had 4 items on the agenda. We've got a Phase 2 construction update from our owner's rep, and I mean, it's just the amount of work that's going on is pretty incredible. So if you want to learn more, you can listen to that to the committee meeting online. We also had a presentation on special education staffing requests. Jill and Sue Wigging shared about the growth of students and the need for additional educational aids. And so we will be seeing that, I think, in the future on a board agenda. Thirdly, we had a great lesson on temporary versus final appropriations and how that plays into the monthly financials. And then lastly, we reviewed the April and May actual financial results. And happy to say we're ahead in revenue and under in expenses. So it's a good world right now. That's all.
Thanks, Mrs. Mooring. That just reminded me, I guess I assumed that those staffing requests would be on tonight, but I don't think they are. When will they be in front of us?
Likely at our next meeting, special meeting that has personnel on it.
So at some point in June, but not tonight. Thank you. Next, we have an update from Policy and Governance Committee from Mr. Manley.
Hi, everybody. Happy Pride Month and happy upcoming Juneteenth to everybody. I just want to say policy meets quarterly, and so we have another meeting coming up July 26th, and that'll be posted on the website, so thank you.
Manley. And then finally in this section, we have an update from Student Learning and Achievement Committee from Mrs. Coates.
Yeah, Student Learning and Achievement does not meet monthly, and we did not have a meeting in May, but our next meeting is next week on June 23rd, which is a Thursday, and our topic is a sense of belonging in athletics. So hopefully we'll see everyone there, and if not, you can watch it online.
It's Mrs. Coates. We are on the public participation section of the agenda. I currently have 2 slips for public participation, so if there is anyone other than the 2 that I call up who intend to address the board, you still have time to fill out the slip. It just needs to get to me by the end of this section of the agenda. And just as a reminder, I don't see a whole lot of new faces tonight, but public participation is a section of our regular monthly meetings that we set aside on the agenda for you. It is specifically set aside for community members to address the board. It is not intended to be a dialogue, but it is your opportunity to address the board about issues that are on your mind. It is an address to the entire board, and the policy provides that there's a 3-minute time limit with the opportunity to extend by 2 minutes. But since there has not been a time when I have not granted the request to extend time, we set the timer for the full 5 minutes. And the only time that I would cut anybody off is if there's repeating after the 3-minute time period. And again, that time limit is not intended to try to stifle anything that you might have to say. It is simply to be respectful of everybody's time. So with that, the first slip that I have is from Siobhan Wolf-Schaefer. And you don't need to adjust the microphone.
As a theater mom, I know better than to touch microphones. I am not a technical person. Well, good evening. As she said, I'm Siobhan Wolf-Schaefer, and I am, it's not on my slip, but I did want to take a brief moment just to thank the board and the administration for supporting the theater kids trip to New York. I was fortunate enough to go with them and was a chaperone. I did give Mrs. Piccolantonio a letter with some pictures of the kids. They had a great time in New York, and this was a trip that was scheduled for 2020 of spring break, and it finally got to happen. So we appreciate, and Mrs. Maciosi had asked me to make sure to thank the administration and the school board for that. But the reason I was here this evening was to extend my thanks and appreciation to Mr. Barrett as he retires. Personally, for my family, Mr. Barrett has been very supportive. I was particularly surprised and shocked during the summer of, was it 2020? God, the years are amok. But when we had to make that decision, is your kid going to be distance all year? Or are they going to be going? Or what is going to happen? And I had questions, and I had emailed them on some form, probably to Mrs. Elliott and Mr. Barrett. And Mr. Barrett personally called me and spoke to me on the phone for probably 20 minutes as we talked through, how do you make this decision with stuff that nobody knows anything about? And I thought, this is the superintendent of the school district who is calling me about my high school student's decision, and I was very touched and moved by that. I'm also, as I said, a theater mom, and in the past year, our theater program has experienced a lot of support from the administration, from the board, and from Mr. Barrett. My daughter was, excuse me, one of the students in probably every production you saw this year, because she was very busy on stage. But particularly because we presented a couple early in the year, She Kills Monsters, and then in our black box we did the Laramie Project. We did two significant pieces of theater that were banned in other school districts, that were protested and things like that. And I wanted to express my appreciation for Mr. Barrett's support and the board's support for us to take on that kind of edgy, leading edge theater work. Following the Laramie Project, Mr. Barrett wrote a personal letter to each member of the cast and sent it to them, and that meant a lot to those kids, because that, if you saw it, is not an easy show to either watch or perform. And while it is usually done by maybe 8 adults, and we had, say, 16 kids doing it, it was an educational and moving experience for the children, as well as for everyone who saw the show. And I think we probably could have put on several more iterations of that show and sold those out as well. But I really appreciate the personal involvement that Mr. Barrett has shown towards the theater program through the time that I've been here, and just supporting the students in expressing who they are and what's important to them. So I wanted to say thank you before you leave, and happy retirement.
Thank you. Next slip that is from Catherine Hope Cunningham.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Hope Cunningham. I was a Middle School West parent. Now I have an incoming freshman. And I'm also on the Master Facilities Planning Committee as well. And I'm sorry, Steve, I know you don't like attention, but I am here to add my thanks for your service to the district. I have been in many meetings that stretched long into the evening. To say that your job did not fit neatly into a 9 to 5 day is, I think, the understatement of the century. And over the years, I have seen and personally observed you do many community outreach type events, coffees for the community, for levies, and board meetings like this. And I think that what you have done has been very time intensive. And I recognize that that's, of course, at the expense of, time with your family. And I just want to say thank you for that, and thank you for your service that stretched long past, business hours. I also want to say that all school administrators who powered through the COVID-19, the pandemic, deserve special recognition, but especially the ones that were this close to retirement. And I think that is special as well and says a lot about you. I learned something about you tonight, which I didn't know. I didn't realize you were involved in Bridges. I think that is pretty indicative of the way that you approach your job. And I don't know how you had time for it, quite frankly. But you've done a lot for this community, and very proud of what you've accomplished, and very grateful. So thank you. You're welcome.
And I know it feels a little awkward that we don't have applause during public participation. But thank you to anyone who spoke tonight. Next we are on adoption of the agenda. Any changes to the agenda being recommended tonight? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Coates. Any discussion? Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Motion carried.
And we are on to the superintendent's report. I will turn it over to you, Mr. Barrett.
Thank you. I just, I'm overwhelmed with emotion, and it's been very, very nice tonight to have so many people say such nice things. And so Mayor Jadwin and Ron Smith and Representative Lightbody and Paige Harding and Siobhan and Catherine, thank you so much for coming tonight and saying all the kind things you said. It means a lot to me. I think, my joke is that course I took in leadership in a pandemic at Case Western Reserve in 1982 really paid off. But there was no course. There will be now, I think, but there wasn't one. And, a lot of us superintendents, we, supported one another. And my colleagues in Central Ohio, many of us talked to one another about, whether we could really make it through this. And I know anybody in public service, whether Mayor Jadwin, we've talked about the difficulties of pandemic and then heat waves, and you never are quite sure whether you're making the right decision, and sometimes decisions you make are the wrong ones. And so I just want to say that I appreciate our Board of Education, our current one, our past boards. Their support has been tremendous, because everything Catherine said about the time I put in, they also put in. And they have really changed the face of our school district, and without them, we couldn't do what we do. So, my wife isn't feeling well. She wanted to be here tonight. She's watching on Zoom, and I know what she's saying. Who really believes he doesn't like attention? Probably is. I'm sure that's what she's saying. I'll get a text in a minute, but so thank you so much. I'm filled up with gratitude. So on to my report. One of the things that has been most gratifying about our work in our schools is the relationship we have with our police department in these very trying days, these very violent days, these days where well-being and emotional well-being just seems to be elusive for many individuals, many kids, and so I have leaned on our chief of police, Jeff Spence, and he's here tonight, and we're going to talk about what we're doing, what we have been doing with safety, and our partnership is what Chief says about us is we're our biggest customer, our most important customer, and we had a safety meeting a couple years ago where he instilled so much confidence in me, in our school board, in our community. So thank you, Jeff, for being there. And I may call Jeff at 6 in the morning. In fact, he calls me often at 6 in the morning. And
I was just going to interrupt that absolutely nothing good comes of us exchanging phone calls either at 11 o'clock at night or 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
But I will miss those conversations, Steve, very much, very much.
Yeah, I will too. I may still call you, but so our partnership is fantastic, and I appreciate the mayor allowing Jeff to support our schools in the way that he does. And one of the concerns that a number of parents have emailed us about is House Bill 99, and Jeff has a real good perspective on it. The training that was reduced, and neither one of us want to politicize this at all. We just want to talk about facts and what this law means. And I know our school board has no intention of changing its policy to allow guns in our schools, and I know our teachers don't want that, and none of us really thinks that's the solution. So I invited Jeff here tonight to share his perspective on what's happening. And one of the things I love about Jeff is he takes such a measured approach. He's, let's wait and see what really happens with this. So, Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate it. Actually, we had a little bit of a discussion about this on Monday night's council meeting. On Monday, not only did House Bill 99 was that signed, but also House Bill 215, which is commonly referred to as constitutional carry, went into effect. We've been working over the last several months knowing this was coming, but then as it became closer and closer to being the law, understanding what that impact was going to be, working with the prosecutors and our courts in Franklin County, also locally, and trying to get training out to our officers and how to navigate this new environment that essentially does away with the concealed handgun licenses, and it's as it's called, constitutional carry. So we're still kind of working through that, working through its impact, but kind of as a dovetail, or actually a second shoe to drop, was House Bill 99 and what that impact was, and is going to be. I wanted to talk, and Steve and I kind of had some discussions over the last few weeks, and then this week as well. But training is so critical to any task, education and training, and that's really what I wanted to talk about. And I kind of wanted to set the stage with what our officers go through. A police officer at recruit level training here for the city of Gehanna receives 1,000 hours. That's 1,000 classroom hours of training over 7 months of intensive training. A lot of that focuses around decision-making, crisis intervention, de-escalation, all of those things. When they graduate the basic recruit training, which is going to happen here in about another month, we have 4 officers coming from one academy, Columbus Police Academy, one from the Ohio Highway Patrol. They're going to enter our training program, which is about 4 months, about another 500 hours of training. Following that, they receive about another 40 hours of critical incident team training. They receive a portion of that in the basic academy, and then they come out with a critical incident team certification. All that adds up to nearly a year, almost a year of full-time training by the time they're realized as an officer and ready to serve the city of Gehanna. That is a great deal of training. In House Bill 99, it's 24 hours. It's mandated by the state. Our own Attorney General made comments regarding that level of training. I can tell you, I was commissioned a peace officer in Ohio in 1992. I think back then it was about 550 hours of training. I could tell you my law enforcement training has continued over my 30 years of serving Gehanna, but I can tell you that 500 hours or 550 hours in 1992, if I were to have that level of training and serving in today's environment, I would be ill-prepared. So I wanted to keep this focused on the training requirements. It's extensive. It's learning much more than firearms training. It's learning how to identify threats, how to prioritize those threats, how to engage those threats, and most of those can be done verbally. De-escalate. We're dealing with a mental health crisis of exponential proportions, and I'm sorry, Steve cut me off on my 5 minutes. I'm sorry. Please tell me to stop. But we're dealing with a mental health crisis, exponential mental health crisis. It is affecting our youth, as we all know. Steve and I have these discussions quite often. We've actually, because of that impact, we just brought on a community liaison officer that was funded through our city council, a specialized officer. It's a very senior officer in our staff. We were able to deploy that position within the last couple months, working with our mental health providers, working with our youth, working with Franklin County Children's Services and the many social services providers to fill that gap. So that being said, with the mental health crisis that we're facing, this is just, in my mind, it's a very uninformed reaction to a national tragedy, and certainly, I can't fathom the loss in Texas. I can't fathom the loss in any of these situations in what is confronting educators and the school board. We are here. We are extremely well trained. We have a core group of school resource officers that are anchored in the high school, that are also servicing the middle schools. They're off at their annual training this year. There's an annual conference where they get refresher training. Those school resource officers also go through a basic academy of an additional 80 hours in addition to all the other training that I've talked about. That's where we keep our schools safe. You keep schools safe by providing mental health resources, identifying problems, working in collaboration, and everything that we're doing here in the city. Steve, I'm sorry you're leaving. I look forward to those 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. phone calls. But that being said, you have our commitment to keeping your schools safe. You're our number one customer. You're a population center of some 10,000 that come into our city every day. You have our commitment, and you have our trust and our unending admiration for all the work that you do, and teachers, students, and staff out here as well. So thank you very much. I went past 5 minutes. I do apologize. But he asked me to hit a couple points, and that's so.
Thank you so much, Chief. Thank you. Your partnership just means so much. It makes us feel like we're safer than we would be if you weren't here. And it just, I think you're right, and it is a mental health crisis. I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and I appreciate you coming out tonight to talk with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So we have a number of things that we've added for safety, things like buzzers into buildings, secure entry, new visitor systems we went over with principals today, our new volunteer policy, 2 tiers of it, people that are going to be one-on-one with students and people are going to be in groups with students. So every year we try to improve our safety procedures. We've added additional security staff, so in addition to our 3 school resource officers, we have 7 campus supervisors. We update and practice our emergency operation procedures regularly, working with law enforcement agencies, first responders. We've developed and continue to revise and implement and regularly practice emergency operations. And due to safety concerns, we don't share a lot of detail about those. We have a school safety hotline. Some school districts call it, if you see something, say something hotline. And it's just important to note that our schools need to partner, as Chief talked about, with our entire community on safety. Because if you see something, you need to say something. In every one of these tragic situations, people notice things about an individual, whether it was the young man in Parkland, Florida, or this young man in Uvalde. There were signs that people, thought were odd. And those 2 individuals, if we think we can punish our way out of this, I think we got another thing coming. The Parkland shooter was expelled from school when he did what he did. So nobody had tabs on him. Nobody knew where he was. Nobody knew that he went out and bought a gun. He was 18. The individual in Uvalde dropped out of school, was a loner, was bullied, was made fun of. The key is they were disconnected, as Chief was talking about. And one of the things I think that we need to keep coming back to is building a strong sense of belonging is one of the most important things we can do to stay safe, to create a safe school environment, an environment where everyone is valued, respected, supported, included, and personally accepted. When schools create a sense of belonging where students find this kind of home, a place where they can be nurtured and cared about, then the school community and the wider community will be a safer place to go to school and to live. And so I want to talk just a little bit about what we've added with mental health. So if there's a threat at a school, let's say from a student, we, under Lisa Kelly, our mental health lead, she's developed a protocol that she works with principals and counselors and mental health specialists to go through. It's a checklist of, we're not just worried when there's a threat about the people being threatened, we're worried about the student who's doing the threatening, what's going on with that person. It's important to talk about. We have several things that we are trying to do proactively to get kids talking about things when they're anxious or sad or depressed. So we have a Signs of Suicide program. In 7th grade, 577 total students were taught the lessons of signs for suicide and screened, and a total of 147 were flagged as at risk. These students each met individually with a mental health provider to be assessed, and parents were notified of any safety concerns. In 10th grade, 607 students were taught the lessons and screened. In total, 127 were flagged as being at risk and met individually with mental health providers. We have Hope Squad, a peer-to-peer suicide prevention program, which was implemented in 9th through 12th grade. 44 students were nominated by their peers as trustworthy students that others would seek out for help if needed. They were then trained by advisors on how to support their fellow students who may be experiencing suicidal ideation. At the high school, we have a program called Green Dot, which is a bystander intervention training program. It was implemented at the high school grades 10 through 12. In total, 142 students were trained in proactive ways to step in and support fellow students when situations may become harmful. And just recently, we had some students identify that they were sexually assaulted. And so we developed a partnership with the Sexual Assault Response Network of Ohio. And through that partnership, we've established a survivor group for high school students who have experienced sexual assault. I could go on and on and on about the things that we've added. And, you know, I'll tell you, it never feels like it's enough. And so I think we got to continue as a community to grow and observe. And when we see something, we need to say something. I mean, one of the concepts of our open concept high school floor plan is visibility. You know, so people can see if there is something. We were at Upper Arlington this week looking at their high school for a superintendent meeting, and the way they describe the openness of the floor plan is we want students and teachers to see what's coming at them so that it's not hidden. Our high school is going to be on Hamilton and Havens Corners. It's going to be very visible from the street. There's a concept architects talk about passive observation. We want community members to, when they see something, we want them to say something. We've added assistant principals, I forgot to say, at all of our schools to help with discipline, to help with mental health. We've added copious amounts of mental health specialists using ESSER funds. And lately we've, have really listened to our mental health coordinators about the needs. Another, it's not something that we say we can't afford. We look at it, we analyze it, and we say we can't afford not to many times. One of the things that I think is important to know that we also have a smart labs, so places where kids that are having an anxious moment, maybe struggling to behave in class, they can go there and calm down. And there's an individual that is trained on calming practices so the student doesn't get suspended, doesn't get sent home, but can calm down and go back into the classroom. I am very proud of the work we're doing, but I'm also frightened by what I see in our society. And I think we need to continue to drill down and to look at mental health as the biggest, as Chief said, the biggest problem with school violence. And so I just, that's not my whole report. I went on a little long, but I appreciate you coming out tonight, Chief, and supporting us. So I just have a couple more things, and then Jill is going to talk about our calendar survey. So something a little more uplifting. So last Friday and Saturday, I got to go watch the high school track meet, and our girls won the state track meet by about 17 points, which is just, if you know anything about track, it's just unheard of to win by that much. And they, Coach Whitaker he's sort of a Zen master of coaching. And so when I was texting him about how excited I was watching, he said he implemented, and I wrote about it, there's an article in the Dispatch about it that I wrote, because I was just so impressed by what he told me. He had what he called as the 90-second rule, and if something went wrong for the kids, they had 90 seconds to think about it, let it go, and then get back on team focus, right? Or 90 seconds to celebrate something good, think about it, then get back on team focus. Well, the funny thing is we had a principals meeting today, and Kristen Groves, our principal at Blacklick, ran for Coach Whitaker. And she said 90 seconds. He used to give us 10 minutes. So he's been coaching a long time, 33 years, and he changes it up as he sees fit. So congratulations, girls. I talked with Coach Whitaker. They're going to come here on July 21st to be recognized. And they are, right now, we have so many girls around the country in national meets competing. And congratulations to Alyssa Shope, who was cross-country athlete of the year. She's also on the track team. and Camden Bentley. She won, I think, 4 events or participated in 4 events that achieved first place, and she's being recruited by all kinds of schools across the country. She's the #1 hurdler in the state, in the country, I believe, number 1 or 2. She's in the top 5 for sure. So congratulations to Coach Whitaker and the girls. Fantastic job. Just a couple more things. Just going to talk about our facilities work. So I'll start with the elementary schools. So at Blacklick Elementary, the academic wing, we're installing windows, exterior doors, beginning the storefront. We're roughing in overhead mechanical, electrical, and finishing drywall. The gymnasium roof was just added, so if you drive by there, you can see all this in action. And then miscellaneous renovations to the interior have started, and we're adding the utilities for the site. At High Point Elementary, the academic wing is well underway. We're setting the hollow core roof, which is a sort of an alternative to a steel roof because of the supply chain issues, and we're adding brick masonry veneer, and we're building masonry walls for the gymnasium, and they're beginning renovations and adding site utilities at High Point as well. At the middle schools, we moved in to the construction document phase. So we finished design development, Russilli Construction estimated it. We did value engineering, which means just kind of trying to cut costs as much as possible. We're really proud of that work. Jill Elliott was the driver of much of it, and we came in 2.4% over budget, which we just had a meeting with an architect from a firm that we're not currently working with. He said one of his projects is 50% over because of the pandemic and the supply chain and the labor shortages. So it's really amazing that we're 2.4% over, and we can cover that with some of our design contingencies, so we're going to be okay. What it means is design development is where all the plugs and the plumbing and the electrical and the walls and the windows and doors go. So all the fine detail construction documents we're going to be given to Russilli so they can actually build the structure. And so those are in process right now. And I'm just going to briefly talk about the high school. On June 3rd, we gave Russilli Construction, or DLR, our architect, gave them the final design development package, and so Russilli Construction is estimating that package right now, and in a couple weeks they'll come to us, and we know we'll have some hard work ahead. We'll have to value engineer that. We did a design development exercise at 50% design development, and we were 10% over, which is really good in this environment, but not quite good enough because it's 10% of $158 million, which is what the high school costs to build, and so that's $15 million. So we have to find a way to reduce things, and we're ready and poised to do that work. And then Blacklick Elementary, the athletic complex out there, I think it was May 9th, the board passed or voted on a guaranteed maximum price for that property of $5.8 million, and the earthwork is starting there. The rain has been a little bit difficult because you can't just move around mud, and so you may see them out there working on Saturdays because there's been a number of tough weather days. But what we're doing there is we're building a softball field with a press box and restrooms, 2 softball fields, 3 fields, practice fields, 1 with turf, and 10 tennis courts. And much of the work we're doing of the $5.8 million is earthwork. It's utilities work. It's underground. You're not going to really be able to see it. But we have a planned unit development, and we're going to put some outbuildings there. One is a 550 square foot batting cage and mini kind of field house. We can't afford that at this go around, but we're going to continue to work to try to find monies to develop that further. And I think that rec park is going to be just a treasure to our community. I think it'll be used morning, noon, and night, and not just by high school kids, but by the whole community. So I want to turn it over to Jill to talk about our calendar.
Sure. So my update's going to be brief because when we come with calendar recommendations, I'll go into more details about things. But we did send out information and a survey in the weekly update last Friday, and then also just a reminder email and a text message to make sure people saw that. We have 1,770 responses. So almost as many people that filled out the priority survey. That was 1,777. So in that priority survey, which the calendar committee took a look at, starting school later was definitely the top priority, as well as ending school before Memorial Day, if possible, and having 2 weeks off at winter break. I always like to remind people that starting later means you get out later, and so that makes that Memorial Day piece a little trickier. In the calendar formats that the calendar committee put together, they worked so hard to draft options that met all of the requirements of a calendar, and I think when the group left after kind of voting on the final formats, they just said, wow, there's a lot that goes into this. And even when I took a look at their drafts, then again, there were some tweaks and things that had to be made just to meet all of those requirements. There's also things to take into consideration, such as, if we move spring break up to a week where maybe Good Friday is, and so we already have a Friday off, and that would make 4 school days, then that's a day of school you need to tack on at the end, which would, in one of the options, bring us back 1 day after Memorial Day. So you have to weigh, the pros and cons of just the slightest little move. We also worked really hard to create options that were inclusive of the families in our district, and so we could strategically place our days off to honor the celebrations of our diverse families, and so that was a lot of work that was done. That gets tricky when you duplicate a format, though, because those days change every year and they bump around. And so it really is, you have to be pretty crafty to make things work. We have 408 comments that came along so far with the survey responses. So we'll be taking a look at those and kind of looking for some trends. If there are easy tweaks to any of the formats, we'll certainly do that. I did want to make a note. With the calendar, as with most things that we do, for every comment we get to support one thing, we get a comment to support the opposite. So for instance, I was just looking over the comments and there was someone expressing that they didn't like the spring break being moved. And then the next comment was, I love it, it's warmer than, those types of things. So everyone has different perspectives and bring different thoughts to the table. Regarding spring break, though, I did just want to point out that in the 23-24 school year, which is the year that those the sample templates were put out for, it also happens to be a year that the Great American Eclipse is occurring, which is different than the eclipse we experienced 5 years ago, because in Ohio we'll be in the path of totality. And so what we're hearing is that it's going to make for a really difficult few days. And even the Ohio Department of Education has recommended that we take some time off of school that week. And then it also coincides with one of the holidays that we're trying to work with. So that's the main reason for the bump in spring break that school year. But there is a chance, and it's likely that it could bump back to what we're used to in the following 2 calendars. So I just wanted to touch on that. Have definitely gotten some feedback about that. So the survey closes tomorrow at noon, and then we'll gather the feedback, look at what the community's voted on, and see if there are any tweaks to be made, and then we'll have 3 years of calendars to recommend to the board at one of our upcoming special meetings. So I said that was going to be brief, but it wasn't super brief.
Thank you for that last bit of explanation, because the question about the timing of spring break is the question that I have heard most often from people. So I appreciate that explanation and the clarification that when the board does get the calendars to vote on, we'll have 3 different years worth of calendars to look at and see, and they may look similar in respect to the goals, but as it plays out on the calendar, the days itself might look different.
I know that's a lot of hard work and a lot of information to process, so really, really appreciate your hard work. And I think one of the things people really want to see is, if we can, start a little later. I think we start August 10th this year, is that right? Yeah, and so I think that's driving some of it, but I really appreciate your hard work on it. Just a couple more things. Grin was, Gehanna Residents in Need was doing free lunch at Lincoln Elementary, Goshen Lane, and Royal Manor. They weren't getting a lot of attendance at Lincoln, so they cut that site. And so any family that wants to go to Goshen Lane or Royal Manor can get lunch during the summer, and they don't just feed students but also families. It's a wonderful thing. It's from noon to 1, Monday through Friday, and it started May 31st and it goes to August 5th. And then just a couple more dates. June 25th is Safety Saturday. July 6th through 8 is Kindergarten Readiness Mini Camp, and July 18th through 22nd is our orchestra camp, and then our first day of school is August 10th. That's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Barrett. I just wanted to note, as she walked out the door, Councilmember Padova also is staff for Grin, so she stayed to hear that last comment about Grin, but she had another meeting to get to. But that partnership is really important for our kiddos, particularly in the summer, but all year. Next we have, well, unless there are any questions from board members, we've got Treasurer's Report. Mr. Gooding?
Well, how do you follow that? Wow. So I will keep mine short. Daphne, thank you for the comments and the update on the Finance Committee. I thought it was a great committee meeting. I thought, we've got some future treasurer CFOs who just can't have my job yet until I'm, years from now. But I thought that was a great opportunity for us to talk about the statutory process for appropriations and budgeting, and we're going to try to do some more of that education piece in our committee meetings to get that out, not only for us, but for the community as well that watches those. So we've got 7 items on the agenda here this evening. The first is the approval of the monthly financial reports for the months of April and May. There are 2 items on here that are service contract agreements for St. Matthew. We are the flow-through funds, we handle the funds for the auxiliary programs, so there's 2 contracts on for those. We have 2 items related to a new club. We have the workshop club, so we're going to approve them as a new club, and a $2,000 appropriation for them as well. So you'll see that there. Donations, as always, huge thank you to all of the folks on this list that have contributed items or funds to support the programs that we deliver in the schools. And the last item is a then and now. It's a statutory thing. When we have invoices over $3,000 that didn't have a purchase order ahead of time, we have to have that approval at the board meeting. So once we have approval here, then we can pay those the invoices there as well. Like I said, I was going to keep it real short tonight.
Mr. Gooding?
Any questions?
Thank you. As Mr. Gooding said, there are 7 items for action under financial business. So unless there's an objection to taking those items together, is there a motion to approve items number 1 through 7 under letter C? Thanks, Mrs. Mooring. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Any additional discussion? Okay, Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Manley?
Yes, I wanted to acknowledge the new club, the woodworking club, very exciting. So yes.
Mrs. Mooring? Yes. Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Motion carried.
We are on page 5, letter D, educational pupil programs and services, and there are 12 items for action. Unless there is an objection to taking those items together, is there a motion to approve items number 1 through 12 under letter D?
So moved.
Thanks, Mrs. Coates. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Manley. Any discussion about these items? Okay, Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Horn? Yes. Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring,
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio,
Yes.
Mrs. Coates.
Yes.
Motion carried.
We are on human resources. There are 55 items for action under letter E, human resources. Unless there is an objection to taking those items together, is there a motion to approve items number 1 through 55 under letter E?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Manley. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. In a minute. Is there any discussion or questions? Now, go ahead, Mr. Manley.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to acknowledge Brittany Kimbleton and just say that my family will miss her. I would thank her for all her due diligence and service to our students, and just say that she's meant a lot to my family, and just wish her the best. Much success.
I would
Go
just
ahead,
say
Mrs.
hats
Moore.
off to the HR department for, I mean, this is an incredible amount of work in 30 days, basically, right? Since our last incredible amount of work was recognized. So really appreciate their diligence in getting all these positions taken care of.
A lot of work by our principals and some teacher interviews, teachers involved in some interviews, and our curriculum team and our HR department. I don't think it's ever been this much hiring since I've been here anyway. So, yeah, thanks for pointing that out.
Did somebody else have a question? Okay, I had a question about the new administrative staff that we're hiring. So I know we've got 3 new assistant principals, 1 new middle school athletic director. I know I don't know if I gave you enough time. I had asked earlier, do we know where any of those assistant principals or new athletic director, where they're coming from? And then my second question is, I know we talk a lot about the kind of professional development and support that we put in place for teachers. What do we do for new administrators? What kind of supports do we have in place? What kind of professional development do we do?
So I don't know all of the details about where all of them came from. I know Amanda is coming from out of state. Lindsay was a former teacher at Middle School West, so she resigned from her position and she'll be an assistant principal. Chris Williams, I'm not positive on, and Garrett served as our interim middle school athletic director to close out the 21-22 school year. We, as far as administrative support, we assign a mentor in the district for them, and we also, Shay Reed and I host regular meetings throughout the course of the year to address various topics of interest, some personnel, some evaluation-based, some procedural. So Stephanie Luca and I actually started that a few years ago, and then Shay had a year with me. We actually didn't do it last year, but we'll be doing it again next year.
Our principals meeting, Jill led an activity of aligning what assistant principals will do in terms of duties, and it was very collaborative. Are they going to take on discipline? Are they going to take on testing? Mental health things, and so that was a very collaborative exercise, and so that's how we'll frame those duties. I thought that was really well done.
How
And
about,
that activity also allowed us to take a look at our instructional coaches as well, and how we use, those various roles to support teaching and learning, and as Steve said, discipline and the variety of, responsibilities in the building.
how about professional development in general? I know for our teaching staff and some of our other frontline staff, under the collective bargaining agreement, we have a professional development advisory council that kind of sets that professional development for the year. How does that work for administrators?
So our administrators would be involved in that same professional development that's designed and planned from PDAC. And then various professional development opportunities that we provide over the course of the year. For instance, when we do foundations training, we usually try to bring in a new administrator to make sure they get that training. I just saw Nikki Miller, the new principal at Chapelfield, and Aaron Schmidt sitting down at central office last week, and they were going over things. A lot of collaboration throughout the year with the curriculum team and the instructional coaches to provide support. And then we also, just like with our teaching and support staff, when there are professional development opportunities outside of the district, they submit, go through a process, and we often send, them outside of the district for professional development as well. So there's a lot of opportunity, and it's ongoing.
Thank you. Mrs. Coates, did you have a question?
Saw a question come through, but I might have missed the answer. Page 13, number 15, the communications coordinator position in the communications meeting that we had back in March. I know we had talked about holding until there were conversations with Dr. Deagle about that position, and so just wanted to confirm those conversations occurred.
Yes. Yep. I think I sent an email. It was probably midday or late today. But we have had those conversations with Dr. Deagle. We've started those discussions to kind of fill her in on some of the, strategic ideas that we have. There will be more conversations as we develop the job description. So this is just approving that position, that FTE, but then before we get ready to post and we're ready to have the job description approved, there will be more discussion to be had. But she has been a part of discussions to kind of front load her on that.
So the job description comes to us for approval before the position gets posted?
Well, not typically.
Oh.
Typically, we oftentimes have like a recommendation and a job description on the agenda at the same time. But I do believe that you'll have an opportunity to see it beforehand, so we'll make sure of that.
I think I'm still, I know that we often approve the FTE before, like I know that is part of our regular process, but I'm really wondering if it's premature to have this on the agenda tonight, given that we have started discussion but haven't closed the loop on it.
Sure, because the job description could drive the title too.
That's what
Like
I'm
a change.
concerned about too. That's what I'm concerned about also.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I'm not sure, but if it hasn't been developed yet, there's that possibility.
Yeah. No foul, no harm. We can take it off.
Is there any reason that I'm not thinking of from a financial perspective or any other perspective why?
No, honestly, when Shay and I talked about it today, there's just so much going on, and she said, I just don't want to forget it. So, but we can take it off and we can just pair it with the job description.
Okay. Just because it is a brand new position that was kind of driven by a conversation that the board started.
Yeah, I think if it was a teaching position, it would be risky to not, try to fill something for the school year. But I think it may be somebody coming in from outside education, maybe somebody inside of education. So, but I think we do have, if it is somebody from another district, they cannot leave their district after July 10th.
Sure.
The district can hold them. So that's I think the biggest risk.
Doesn't sound like we're prepared to move that quickly anyway.
Right. I think so.
Right.
Okay.
I think that's right.
So procedurally do I need a motion to table item number, now I don't remember, 15? Is there a motion to table item number 15 under letter E?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Coates. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Any additional discussion about that? Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Any additional discussion about any of the other 54 items under Human Resources? Do I need an amendment? No, just need to call the roll?
Right.
Okay. Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll on the Motion to approve items number 1 through 14 and 16 through 55 under letter E.
Mrs. Coates? Yes. Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Motion carried.
We are on letter F, general business, and there are 18 items for action. If there is not an objection to taking the 18 items together, is there a motion to approve items number 1 through 18 under letter F? Thank you, Mrs. Mooring. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Any discussion? I am going to read this number 18, but is there any discussion? Sorry, Steve. Is there any discussion before that about any of the other items? Okay. I am going to read item number 18, which is a resolution to recognize Steve Barrett, Superintendent of Gehanna Jefferson Schools. Whereas Mr. Steve Barrett served as Superintendent of Gehanna Jefferson Schools from August 2016 through July 2022. This is a future predicting resolution. Whereas Mr. Steve Barrett provided outstanding leadership and unwavering commitment to the staff, students, and community of Gehanna Jefferson Schools. And whereas Mr. Steve Barrett served as a public educator for over 30 years, demonstrating a commitment to children in the state of Ohio and recognizing the critically important role public education provides. And whereas Mr. Steve Barrett worked intentionally to be available and visible at schools and district events and to keep the community, students, and staff engaged through community conversations, coffees with the superintendent, first responders night, town hall events, feedback opportunities, and personal meetings and calls. And whereas Mr. Steve Barrett has exemplified the mission, vision, and beliefs of Gehanna Jefferson Schools, focusing on high-quality teaching and learning and the importance of all GJPS staff and students developing a strong sense of belonging in our schools. And whereas Mr. Steve Barrett was instrumental in the passage of the operating and bond levies in 2018 and 2020, enabling Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the Master Facilities Plan to move forward, and allowing the district to prepare for growth in student enrollment, both in terms of adequate staffing and learning spaces. And whereas Mr. Steve Barrett navigated the district through the unknowns of a global pandemic, establishing a path for recovery. Now therefore be it resolved that the Gehanna Jefferson Schools hereby honor Mr. Steve Barrett for his 6 years of selfless dedication and exceptional service to the entire GJPS school community. Thank you.
That's very generous and just very moving to me. And none of this work could have been done without our school board, past and present. And so to all of you, your support has been just tremendous. You have been shoulder to shoulder with us, with our team, throughout it all, through the ups and the downs and many of the good things that I think the table is set to become. I'm going to be watching with a lot of pride and love for Gehanna and its schools. So thank you so much. If I'm proud of anything, I'm proud of all of you and the team we've built to move forward, to take our district to another level. So I think that's all I have to say now, but thank you so much. I'm a little, what do you call it, verklempt? Yeah. So thank you. That was very, very nice.
Thanks, Steve. Any additional discussion? Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Mrs. Mooring?
Yes.
Motion carried.
We are on board reports and discussions. We'll start with a pretty brief legislative update from me. The only bills that I'm going to talk about today are the ones that are actually have made their way to the governor's office. So I am not going to talk about anything that is currently still in either the House or the Senate. They're actually on summer recess. So the 4 bills that I just want to briefly mention, 3 of them have been signed by the governor. The first one is House Bill 140. That is a bill that requires property tax election notices and ballot language to indicate a property tax levy's rate in dollars for each 100,000 of the county auditor's appraised value instead of in dollars for each $100 of taxable value. It also requires most election notices and ballot language to display the estimated amount the levy would collect annually. It prohibits any portion of a property tax question from being printed on the ballot in boldface type or with differing font size, and it modifies the deadline for the county auditor's certification of a fixed sum emergency levy or growth levy. That is a bill that was that OSBA advocated against, but it passed out of both the House, and the reason that they advocated against it is that it actually throws a lot of confusion for the voter. Not every property is valued at even $100,000, so to change the valuation and the ballot language in that way can be very confusing. There are a host of other reasons why OSBA advocated against it, but that is a bill that was signed by the governor this week or last week. House Bill 687 is the capital appropriations bill that, as it relates to school, it did include some additional funding for school safety grants. And then the third bill that the governor signed, we've already had some discussion about. That is House Bill 99. That legislation was in direct response to an Ohio Supreme Court decision, Gabbard versus Madison Local School District Board of Education. In that decision, the Ohio Supreme Court held that individuals that school district had authorized to go be armed within a school safety zone. The Ohio Supreme Court held that they must complete an approved basic peace officer training, which is 700 plus hours of specialized training. This legislation was basically in response to that decision, and it reduces that 700 plus hours of required training down to 24 hours of training. And I do want to make clear, we have had a number of questions. I've received a number of emails from community members who are very concerned. I understand that concern. The decision about whether or not to permit staff to carry firearms is a decision that is up to local school boards. And as Mr. Barrett said, and Chief Spence has recommended, that is not a decision that this school board has to my knowledge, ever made. And we have no plans to discuss that going forward. It is not being recommended by our Gehanna police, and it is not within any of the conversations that we've had before. But I certainly understand the concern. I know that Mrs. Coates and I actually had the opportunity to go to the State House and hear testimony on that bill when it was in front of the Senate. There were actually hundreds of people who came to testify in opposition to the legislation, including several from our own community of Gehanna, and including representatives from the FOP. And it is not something that is supported by law enforcement, mental health professionals, teachers. And like I said, it is not something that we're planning to have any discussion about changing in the near future. So I know there are people that are concerned and want to hear that message. I hope you hear it now. We will reiterate that message. We're planning to send, I think, an email tomorrow. so that people know clearly what to expect. The last bill that I want to mention is one that it has been delivered to the governor, but I don't believe he has signed it yet. It is House Bill 583. That's the bill that would extend temporary flexibility for substitute teachers until June 30th of 24. It also became kind of the bill that every education-related thing hanging out there was tacked onto. So it does things like establish a study committee to look at substitute teacher shortages. It makes some corrective changes, and then it also expands the EdChoice voucher program. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention, the State Board of Education met this week. I think I've mentioned before that, or maybe I don't remember anymore if this had happened before we last met, but the State Board had hired a state superintendent, Steve Dakin. Steve Dakin resigned pretty quickly after that hire. The State Board met this week and reappointed Stephanie Siddons as the interim superintendent, effective back to June 3rd. There had been some discussion. There was a motion that was introduced by one of the State Board members to appoint one of the other three finalists as superintendent, but that motion failed. My understanding in conversation with a couple of the State Board members is that there is a desire to do what they had wanted to do at the outset, which is work with a search firm to hire a superintendent. But I don't know if there is a majority of the State Board who has the will to do that or not. So I guess stay tuned. But for now, Stephanie Siddons is back in her role as interim state superintendent. That's it from me as a legislative update. Mr. Manley, anything from Eastland Fairfield?
Thank you, President Piccolo-Antonio, for that report. And I'm bringing you the Eastland Fairfield trade report by Matt Campbell. And he wants to say good evening. And the Eastland Fairfield School Board met Wednesday, June 8th. And they received presentation from Dwight Carter, the coordinator of student support services, on student mental health and results from the Panorama survey they did. His team efforts intend to help grow student self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and a priority on responsible decision-making. And the initial stage is understanding the student's current state. The Panorama topics selected included diversity, inclusion, sense of belonging, self-management, social awareness, gift and perseverance, student-teacher relations, and rigorous expectations. The student's highest favorable score was diversity and inclusion at 69%, and the lowest was a sense of belonging, 37%. One cause of the sense of belonging score could be the nature of the career tech and students attending only for 1 to 2 years, and that factor is going to be looked at and discussed more in the future. The teachers and staff also took the Panorama survey. The teachers' topics selected were self-reflection, sense of belonging, well-being, cultural awareness, faculty growth, school climate, feedback, and coaching. And the staff responded to questions for well-being, self-belonging, school climate, and feedback and coaching. Mr. Carter will work with the administration to review the gathered information and use it to enhance climate and culture at Eastland Fairfield. And that's the end of the report. Thank you.
Mr. Manley, do we have any report from Gehanna Parks and Rec?
Pickleball courts are in, and the drainage at Headley Park has been fixed, and they have over 600 pool memberships this year, which is a big increase over last year. Yeah.
Thanks. Anything as our local government liaison, Mrs. Mooring?
Couple things. The economic development notice that we received from the City of Columbus today piqued my interest because I'm working an accounting engagement on that same road that this is on. I'm like, wow, wonder where that is. So it is an industrial warehouse zone, and they're going to be building a spec industrial warehouse there. And they were requesting a enterprise zone, which means that for 10 years they can abate 75% of the property taxes. So in 11 years it will help our district, I guess, when that happens, if it goes through, which I would anticipate it would. But we don't get any say in the process unless they request greater than 75% or greater than 10 years. So it's purely a notice that we received. And one of the things, as I was reviewing the city of Gehanna legislative activities, it was just a reminder that with July 4th coming up, even though the state of Ohio passed legislation that allowed discharging, igniting, or exploding of fireworks, the city of Gehanna prohibits it by legislative action. So just, I think, more as a reminder that it's still not okay in Gehanna. And then one other piece, Steve covered many of the things, but when I was the representative on the Parks and Rec board for the school board, they talked about adding a mountain bike trail at one of the parks, and it looks like a proposal is being reviewed. So if there are families out there that have kids that like to do mountain biking, this might be a good time to contact your council member or rep and figure out how to get that done, because I think it would be a really cool addition to our park system to have that mountain bike trail. So that's all.
Thanks, Mrs. Mooring. I moved way too quickly. Mrs. Coates, Gehanna Jefferson Education Foundation.
Yeah, so they are in the final stages of the hiring process to replace Sharon Tumko's, am I saying that right? Tumko's position. She retired this month, but the good news is that she is staying on the GJEF board as a board member, so I'm excited about that. And then the only other thing is Gear Gardens is moving forward with great progress. The students will start a pumpkins crop soon with the expected harvest date in September.
Thank you. Anything from Insurance Committee, Mrs. Ward?
I know that we're still looking for meeting dates, I believe, that are out there for either late August or September. So that will be to come in July as an update.
Okay, thank you. Any other items from board members? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Thanks, Mr. Manley. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Horn. Any discussion about that? Mr. Gooding, can you call the roll?
Mrs. Mooring? Yes. Mrs. Pickle Antonio?
Yes.
Mrs. Coates?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Manley?
Yes.
Motion carried.
It is 8:27 p.m. We're adjourned. That is